eyes look beautiful.
Well, thank you. All right, so we're back. And, my name, Alami Bashir, AKA Mama Lami, your transformational life coach. And you are back for episode 2. Excuse me, not episode 2. I don't know which episode it is, you guys, but part 2 of our episode on depression. And that face that you see below looks very familiar. That's Dr. Tameka Jackson. And again, this is part 2. So if you guys did not catch part 1 already, I urge you to stop what you're doing and go back to catch the beginning part of this, because man, we started scratching the surface and it got deep, and then it was like, oh, we need to start another episode because we have so much more to give also. So if you didn't check it out already, go do that now and then come back. But for those of you who are already with us, you've already watched it, you're already tuned in, we were just about to get into talking about functional depression or high functioning depression and what that looks like. And so without any further ado, let's just jump right back into it. And maybe Tameka, you can share with folks, what do we mean by that, high functioning depression?
So, you know, as Alami was mentioning in the first segment, that one of the telltale signs that you need to see a therapist would be that there's this far-reaching impairment, right? You're finding that your functioning is you're not able to show up for work, your relationships are breaking down. But not everybody has that level of impairment, and they can still be depressed.
Yep.
Right? So maybe there are some people who are still able to go to work. They're still able to do the normal, everyday demands of life.
Yep.
But at night, when the lights go out and they're alone,
Mm-hmm.
they are crying themselves to sleep, or they're feeling just a pervasive sense of emptiness,
Yes.
feeling disconnected, feeling unworthy, right? Just feeling that I'm living behind a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many clients that I work with that fit that description.
Yep. Likewise.
Right? Many people that you may admire in your lives might look like they have it all together,
Mm-hmm.
but that backstage looks very different than the front.
That's
and
right.
So what do I mean, right? I think that especially when we talk about communities of color, you know, and I'll just say Black women in particular, just that being my reference point, there's not always that permission to just have life shut down. So I got to keep.
Yeah, we're super women.
I'm superwoman, right? We
right?
know,
super
mom.
We
don't always know, but it's a myth, right? Yes, we are super, but this idea of superwoman and that we have to have it all together and be strong for everyone and carry the community on our back, it is killing us. It is literally killing us, right? And so I want to, as I say that, I want to back up a second and just talk about some of these somatic symptoms that show up, you know, even in some of these higher functioning cases of depression. So maybe you're finding that, gosh, I'm getting headaches all the time. And I didn't really have a history of migraines, but gosh, my head keeps hurting, you know, or I'm having some digestive issues. Like I'm just
nauseous
mm-hmm. and my stomach's constantly hurting. Backaches, my body is just feeling sore. I'm carrying all this tension. And oftentimes these folks will go to the primary care physician because something must be wrong. You know, I'm feeling this tightness in my chest. I hope I'm okay. And oftentimes they're referred right back to a therapist because it's a manifestation of depression or in some cases anxiety. So I think it's important to pay attention to when you start seeing some of these somaticized ways that depression shows up, that you take some pause and ask yourself, what else is going on?
Yeah.
What else might this be indicative of? So wanted to highlight that part, but then also talk about, so some of these higher functioning people, what are they doing to try to mask the depression, right? One of the telltale signs, just staying productive, staying busy. Right? The more committees that I'm on, I'm taking on, I'm doing this new training, you know, you name it. It's like constantly, these are the people that are constantly adding to that to-do list as a way to just distract themselves from the pain, as a way to feel whole, right? The more things, more things I can put behind my name, more things I can add to my resume. Now I'm doing something, but why am I still hurting?
Right.
Right. I feel like that's just so common. And one of the things with COVID that why people are seeing an increase, right? As I said, my caseload is increasing. I'm getting calls constantly because it was a forced
no
slowdown.
distraction.
No distractions. Everything that you tried to push down, every committee you were on, every meeting that you had, it all just shut down and brought you face to face with your truth.
Or that partner that you can't stand, but you stayed so busy and out of the house that you didn't have to think about it. Or the kid that you don't really know how to love in the way they need. You know, now you're forced to homeschool them and you can't send them away. All of that. All of that.
So stillness is uncomfortable for people, you know, and I think many of us have a narrative that if I'm still, that I'm not functioning, right? If I make time to be still, that's not a useful,
not productive.
It's not productive, right? When to me, taking time to be still is one of the best ways of helping your spirit to actually like reassess and get into awareness on whether or not I'm living in alignment or whether I'm out of alignment. But the more we keep ourselves busy, the less opportunity we get to be able to make the changes that we need to turn that brokenness into wholeness.
That's right. 1,000%.
Absolutely. And other things that we see is, and I think we've seen this with COVID too, is retail therapy. Right? Just, you know, I'm just gonna.
I know you are speaking so many people's truth right now. I know it's folks acting like they in the church house, like, oh my God, like preach.
Listen. Everyone's got discounts. Everyone's got free shipping, right? And so Amazon is coming to your house on the regular, right? The more I can buy, again, that becomes a way of masking. But even some of that had to stop because financially people are in different positions. Right. So that's
but trying to buy their happiness, try to find the joy anywhere they can get it. Absolutely.
Anywhere they can. Or, you know, a lot of us use our social circles, right, as a way to cope. So girls, let's get together, let's do a happy hour, right? Oh, we got you know, but if that happy hour is just consisting of throwing back drinks and keeping it right here on the surface, and it's just another way of numbing and not actually dealing with like what is actually going on here, right? That's leaving me feeling disconnected.
Thank you for bringing drugs and alcohol into the conversation, because that's something else that I've seen with my clients is an increase in alcohol consumption.
Absolutely.
And, you know, what started out as just an occasional drink after work is like drinking all day, even during work hours, working from home. And so, you know, people are just latching on to any kind of way, be it maladaptive or not, to support themselves. And on the surface, seems like everything is good and they're all, you know, as you use the word masking, and I really love that we're talking about this, because I think this is the category that more people fall into. Like everybody can identify the person who's sad, like, oh, they must be really having a hard time. But it's a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more complex to identify someone who's high functioning and depressed. So even if you don't resonate with this personally, you all might know people in your social circle, in your family, in your extended community, that now that you start to hear some of these symptoms, like you can maybe see things a little bit differently. And not saying we should go around trying to diagnose people, but it also might be apropos for us to pay attention, a little bit closer attention to how people are moving and shaking, so that in case they are not able to ask for help, you may be able to offer some help or support, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, and we can, I want to talk more about how to support other people before we go. I definitely want to dive more into that kind of aspect of community care before we go further. But I really want to make sure that we get in some strategy and offer people some tangible things that they can either look into or start to incorporate into their lifestyle routine to better support themselves if they find that now their symptoms are starting to become more pervasive. You know, it wasn't just 1 or 2 days. Now it's been a week. Now it's been 2 weeks, and I'm not feeling any better. I'm trying to do things to help myself, shopping and drinking and, you know, find my comfort foods, but none of that is making me feel any better. So what can I actually do?
Yeah, definitely. So, I want to talk about maybe the top 5 things that you can do. And so first and foremost, it's to find someone to talk to about what's going on, right? It's to, and again, this is, I think, the hardest step of everything that I'm going to say, right? It's just coming to the awareness that something is off and that I need some support, because I also think that for a lot of us, there's this narrative that I should be able to do it on my own. And asking for support means that I'm weak, when actually not asking for support to me is the easier thing to do. The thing that shows more courage and more strength is being able to acknowledge your vulnerability, that I do need help. And we're wired to be in support of one another, right? There's nothing unique about your need for help. We all need it, right? And so I think the first step is just being honest with yourself that there's an issue here and finding some resource to talk to. And so obviously in my case, it would be talking to a therapist. It might be reaching out to a life coach. There might be somebody in your circle, right, that you just know is somebody who you draw a lot of light from, or a lot of wisdom from, that you trust. It might be a minister, but find someone, some initial point of connection to say, can I be honest? I'm not okay.
I'm not okay.
I'm not okay. And it's okay to not be okay.
That's right.
There's not one of us not had that time where we say, I'm not okay. So I want to just really normalize that it's okay to not be okay. And so to find someone, and that someone might then lead you to someone that can help a little bit more, but make that initial connection with someone where somebody can witness that the truth of what's going on.
Sure. And I love that you give language to it. I mean, that's literally a statement that can be repeated. I'm not okay. If you don't know how to start the conversation with somebody, particularly if it's somebody you know, or even if you don't know, it's just, you may not even be able to define it in any clearer terms than that. And that's enough, just to speak that truth. So I love that.
Sometimes there's an obvious stressor, but sometimes you may not know. It's just this pervasive, consistent feeling of, something's just off. Right? I think, once you're honest with yourself, then I think the next step is to, I've heard someone say, tend and befriend. So to be compassionate with yourself, to meet yourself in a place of love and acceptance. We give it all day, every day to the people in our lives, but it's
easily, right?
Easily,
freely, yes,
right. But when it comes to being able to give that same to ourselves, the switch turns off and we go right into criticism mode. You should be different than this, right? You should be better than this. That's okay for them, but you need to push through. And again, we are just as deserving. It is our birthright. It is our birthright to feel love. And so what better person to show love to you than you?
Right.
Right.
That's going to be a whole other episode. We're going to come back to that. That's a whole episode right there. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I had to learn self-love through having children, actually. Through having my own children, oddly enough, taught me how to love myself, because I started loving myself more for them. Before them, I'm just like, woo, whatever, just doing whatever. But it was like, okay, I need to take care of me so that I can take care of them. Right. So, I mean, I definitely want to talk more about that a little bit later. But I definitely 100% agree with what you're saying about basically showing yourself compassion, some grace, some mercy. Our toughest critic is inside our head. Our inner critic is the most judgmental person on the planet. That's the first person we hear, right? And if we don't learn to acknowledge that voice and tame that voice, particularly when we need the support the most, I mean, we don't even give ourselves a fighting chance. So just like you said, being okay with not being okay, you know, like to give yourself permission to not be okay and call it what it is huge.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people, when I say give yourself compassion, give yourself grace, people see that as a pass to not fire for more, right? Like, I got to keep pushing myself. And it's not that, right? It's just recognizing in this moment, this is where I am, right?
This is what you need. Yeah.
This is where I am, and this is what I need, right? And so sometimes you might not have the words of what does compassion sound like. You know, I follow this woman, Kristen Neff, who is a sociologist, and she does research on self-compassion. And she says it can be as simple as just putting your hand over your heart. Just breathing.
Yeah.
And that making that connection, right, over your heart.
Yeah.
In acknowledgement of your existence, of your humanity, of your heart, is just a way to just slow down and through this physical gesture, give yourself love and compassion. Right?
Yeah.
Just be able to say, I see you. And it is,
yes,
I see you.
Yeah.
So that one, like you said, that's a whole nother.
No, we're definitely going back there. Yeah.
And then I think the third thing is monitoring the sources of fuel that you're taking in, right? Spiritually, mentally, psychologically, what are you feeding to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And especially now where, you know, you think about going on social media and there's just a plethora of stuff that can cause you to the news, right? That can just cause you to plummet. And while we want to stay informed, we also want to do it mindfully and have some boundaries around that and be really intentional with taking in, you know, messaging that is going to be uplifting, that is going to help to anchor us in a place that is going to give us more hope, you know, and less fear, right? Or less anxiety. So, you know, when we talk about social media, people give it a bad name at times, but I think there's something such a powerful gift right now, right?
Sure. Connection.
Yes, there's connection. You know, so start to ask people, hey, who do you follow? Who are some people that inspire you? Start following those people, right? And just to be able to, you can curate what your feed is going to look like based on who it is that you're following. Be mindful of the people that you're clicking follow. You know, are these people that are giving me hope, that are bringing me light, or these people that are kind of taking me to a darker place? Right? So really looking at that messaging. I think the next thing is finding outlets for expression and for the cultivation of joy. So these expressions could be movement, right? One thing I know is that while talk therapy is super helpful, if we're not moving and doing work in our bodies, you're not going to get a holistic experience of healing.
Sure. And I love what you're sharing because, and you and I didn't talk about exactly what you were going to share in terms of your 5 strategies. And I'm glad we didn't, because one, I wanted it to be fresh for me. And secondly, I didn't want to influence what you were going to say, but just knowing what I know to be true about you, I'm not surprised that your approaches that you're recommending are kind of this trifecta of mind, body, and spiritual work, right? Because the stuff that everybody knows, it's like, modify, you know, watch your diet, make sure you sleep, and, you know, exercise. And what you're saying is movement, which is a little bit different than what people hear in terms of common messaging around depression, right? Go work out, go to the gym for an hour. Well, no, maybe you need to dance, you know, maybe you need to just jump rope, you know, or skip or hula hoop, you know?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think even the word exercise, you know, for many of us, I know for me personally, I don't like to exercise. It's not my, it's not my thing, right? So when I hear that, I'm not getting motivated. Right? But when I hear movement, I can do that. Like you said, just putting on, you know, a playlist and just dancing all by myself.
Yes.
Right? Can be something. You know, one thing I just want to highlight, when you have animals in the wild, right? And when they have just got away from, you know, a situation that was really scary, where they were literally life and death, right? And when they finally get to a place of safety, they physically shake themselves, right? They physically shake themselves as a way to discharge the energy.
Sure.
right? And so we are, you know, we know about the interconnection. And so we have to do that same thing. We have to find a way to move.
Yeah.
So sometimes that looks like more typical going to the gym or going for a walk, but it can be dancing. It can just be throwing your hands up, right? And doing your own, whatever it is, but find a way to express it through movement, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is I often ask my clients, what brings you joy? That's one of the hardest questions that people have to answer. And oftentimes they go, this shouldn't be hard, but I don't know. I don't know what brings me joy.
Yeah.
Right? So beginning, and so usually what I'll say is, well, let's go back to an earlier point in your life before you had responsibilities. And again, I know this might not have been everyone's experience as a child, but usually we can go back to something as a child that we like to do. Right? Maybe I like to play in the dirt. Maybe I like to build things, whatever it is. Start there. And is there a way that we can recreate that in the present? Right. So I have a client who loved digging up worms in the dirt, and now she's gardening. Right.
Yeah.
And that becomes a way of her cultivating joy.
Right.
So finding expressions for movement, finding sources of joy and leaning into that. Another expression that you want to be able to use in your healing could be writing.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that be journal writing, whether that be whatever it is that you're called, whatever that expression is, but finding a way to tap into your creativity, to find a way to express all that's being held back because of the depression that's happening. And then the last thing I will say is helping my clients to set intentions versus goals.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes the goals, especially when we're in a place of feeling so stuck or feeling so burdened by the depression, sometimes the goals just feel too big. Even the word goal.
Yeah, I try not to use it. Right.
Yeah. So
totally.
sometimes it's like, okay, just, you know, usually I'll end my sessions and say, what are your intentions for this week? Right.
That's
and
right.
your intention just might simply be, I want to be kinder to myself this week.
Yeah.
I want to practice gratitude this week.
Right.
So just really helping them to be able to know that, and that's also restoring some sense of power, right? That I can, no matter what's happening in my day, I can set this intention, right? I'll tell a quick story. When my mom had experienced a bout of cancer, and I was by her side the whole time, and we were at her first chemotherapy appointment, and there was a woman that came in, and I just asked her, she just had a spirit that invited connection.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're both sitting there so terrified. And I said, what advice do you have? And she told her story and said, the only way for me to live now is to stay on chemotherapy. And so I receive it every single day for 3 weeks, and I take a week off, and then I come back. And that was the only, and she had been doing that for 2 years.
Wow. And
she said, my advice to you is to find the joy in every day. And I thought, wow. If this woman, right, who's literally, you know, dying.
Right.
And it's just, her body is just steeped with so much physical pain and emotional pain. And she could say, find the joy in every day.
Right.
All of us can do that. Right. But we oftentimes, our brains are so programmed to focus on what's not working, what's
lacking.
Lacking. Right. And those things are there, but we don't attend as closely to these places of joy. And so part of that writing as well can be, you know, write down just one moment of joy from the day. Okay? So that way that, you know, maybe eventually when you can find yourself able to go back and read some of these, it helps to remind you that it's not all dark. It feels all dark. It feels all consuming. But when you can go back and just see from your own lived examples, some exceptions of light, it helps to inform the hope that things can get better.
Absolutely. And, you know, as you're talking about this the idea of a gratitude list, that's essentially kind of the essence, right? I used to call it a gratitude list also. And I've changed the exercise for my clients to now counting your blessings, to where I literally have people number their list and just continue to let it grow. count all of your blessings, like count them. Don't bullet point them or asterisk it, count them. And so what that I've discovered has led to just that little language and mindset shift that has led folks to now start to look for them more. You know, when you tell someone to create a gratitude list, they're only focused on things that have already happened, not necessarily things that are in the moment or to come. But counting your blessing, you want to add to your list. So you're like looking for the light, you see. And so just to segue into everything you said is everything I use in coaching as well. And this is the joy of, and let me also just be clear, you're not the run-of-the-mill psychotherapist, okay? You're not a textbook psychotherapist. I've met a lot of therapists in my time, and the way in which you approach your client work is uniquely different. And again, that's why I wanted to have you come into this space, is because you're in that world, but you are looking at things from a completely holistic perspective. And just, again, everything you said was, nothing you said was cookie cutter in terms of, I've never heard a therapist speak the things that you just spoken. And I love that, you know? And so I want to, again, talk about the nuance between counseling and coaching, because a lot of those strategies, all of them, actually all 5 of them, are things that I recommend to my clients as well. There's a few other things that I add to the list that I want to speak to. And you mentioned the mind-body connection, you know, just putting the hand over the heart and making that connection. Like that, we maybe use different language for it, but it's the same premise, right? You spoke about, actually, this was going on in my mind when you were talking, but it said something about power and restoring power. And one of the strategies that I use with clients is I use language. Language is everything in my world. Everything in my world, because it is my belief that, particularly when you're talking about wanting to shift thoughts, is that thoughts are more accessible when we give them language. And we're talking about creating a mindset shift. It really is about shifting the language in which you see the world. You know, and so I'm really big on having clients refuse the depression title or the label. And I've always been this way. I mean, I've always been this way in working with clients. It's like, I don't care what the diagnosis is. The diagnosis is helpful in that it helps me understand the conglomerate of symptoms. But when it comes to actually helping people make progress in different areas or ailments of their life, I don't focus on the label, and I steer clients away from focusing on the label, and I encourage them to focus on the symptom and relanguaging the symptom. So it's not, you know, I'm depressed, even though you might be clinically depressed, you may have received a diagnosis of depression. It's not I'm depressed. It's I'm right now having trouble sleeping at night. It's right now I am working to build my appetite. It's I am learning how to be more patient. You know, it's reframing, it's relanguaging experience. And it could be the same, I'm saying the same things. I'm saying I stay up at night. I'm saying I'm having trouble sleeping, and, you know, or I'm having trouble in these different areas of my life, but it's just relanguage. When you relanguage your experience, you're able to restore power, because it's not I'm just depressed and that's just what it is. When I say I'm working to feel better, I'm saying the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm working to overcome my sadness. There's more power in that statement than saying I'm just depressed, you know, or, you know, there's just so much power in that. So I spend a lot of time with clients working on language. And I'll tell you, in the beginning, it's not always well received, because a lot of times what I've discovered is there's some comfort in a label for people. And I can honor and respect that, and that helps people better identify things. But it's a catch-22 sometimes. Absolutely. Because when it's like I'm depressed, then that's your whole identity is that. Right. Or is this just some of the symptoms that you're experiencing? And there might be a lot of symptoms, right? But when you focus on I'm depressed versus I am working to feel better, you completely disarm yourself. I mean, you completely disarm yourself. So language is huge for me. And then you were talking about movement and creative expression. The language that I use is, I call it raising your vibration. And so music in my world is really key and pivotal to that. I can, even in my own world, when I remember when I was really depressed and I would listen to sad songs. And I was just thinking, like, I think now about that, like, why was I doing that to myself? Like, that only made me feel worse, you know, versus when I work with clients now, I'm like, pay attention to your vibration. And I'm not telling you what kind of music to listen to, but music has a vibration. It has a tangible feeling to it. And if that feeling does not feel higher in vibration than the one you're feeling, then that's how you know that's not the song. You know, even if it's your favorite song, it may not be the time to hear it right now. You know, so as you were talking about movement, and, you know, I'm a big fan of yoga. I work out as a function of necessity, not because I like enjoy working out, you know, but I see a lot of utility in certain exercises, like a Zumba, for the reasons that we talked about. It's creative, it's movement, and it's fitness. Yoga it fits in line with that kind of trifecta approach of addressing. Yoga addresses the mind, the body, and the spirit. You know, the breath work that's attached to it, the inner focus on yourself, allowing your mind and your body to become one, and engaging in these physical movements, although subtle, can really kick your butt in terms of helping you build endurance and stamina. So I'm really big on creative movement as opposed to exercise. I also recommend that clients have a plan. If anybody's listened to the first episode of this show, the intro episode, I'm talking about this whole mindset behind Be Great Every Day, and how sometimes I'll share this catchphrase with people, and they're like, you know, it sounds cool, but it's not really realistic, you know, be great every day, you know. And like, to have the mindset that I can't feel good every day, you've already sabotaged yourself. You've already set yourself up to have a bad day. And be great every day, again, it's not about having a perfect day or an error-free day or a day without challenge, but it's just the mindset that regardless of what comes my way, I'll be able to handle it. So when I'm working with clients that are struggling with like stress management, depression, anxiety, those kinds of things, it's like, I plant the seed in them to expect that challenge will come. Like, to think that you're going to have a perfect day every day is insane, because that's just not realistic. It's more realistic to expect that you will have challenges, and to expect that you'll be able to overcome them, just as you have all the ones that are behind you, you know? So mindset is huge. And with that, having a plan, having a certain subset of coping skills, you know, having already pre-made, even if you're feeling great today, you might have listened to this whole episode because you just enjoy listening to us talk, not because you're actually feeling depressed or that you can personally relate to the depth of what we're sharing. But I encourage everyone to establish some kind of stress management kit, you know, to be able to identify before you need it, things that bring you joy. As you're talking about, you know, identifying your joy. And by the way, I thought about this when you were talking. I did a whole live video about this for anybody who's listening or watches my YouTube. If you go back to one of my previous episodes on my channel, there's an episode called something to that effect. I can't remember. Something about knowing what brings you joy. The importance of knowing what brings you joy. That's literally the title of it. And so that's a good reference point. Again, because it's not about waiting to a moment of crisis to support yourself. It's about having this kind of mindful awareness of what you need to nurture you at all times, you know? It's about knowing what you're doing that's working, you know? And then knowing that you can rely on those specific things, like being able to identify those things ahead of time, so that when you do hit a rough patch or, you know, a difficult time, then you know how to help yourself more immediately than trying to like now figure it out, you know, as you go. Right. And you've touched on so many of these things. The last thing I'll mention, and this is a good segue, is I'm often talking to clients about community support. As Tameka had started this conversation about, you know, number one strategy is talk to somebody. right? Reach out to somebody, whether it's a friend, a family, might even be a foe, just somebody just to get it off your chest. And
Right.
of course, a professional is always a good idea. But just having this willingness to engage community support and what I call a starting five, identifying your starting five. And so when I'm a basketball player at heart, I'm always going to be one. And on the court, when you're on the recreational court and you're picking teams, you're trying to pick your best five people, the best five people out there, not just any five people. You're looking for the top five people that are going to be able to support you in your effort, aim, intention, right? And so that's no different. I encourage clients to take on that mindset. And always I have, and it might be rotating. It's not necessarily always the same starting five, right? But just identifying five people in your community, or even if they're not immediately in your community, five people that you could reach out to in time of need, right? To be able to engage those conversations of, hey, I'm just not okay.
Right.
I have people literally on speed dial right now and for me, it's not, my language is not, I'm not okay. My language is, I just need a friend. That's what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's not even a conversation. Maybe it's just holding space on the phone. Literally just sitting on the phone. They listen to me cry, And if I have a word or something, then I'll say it. If they have one, they'll say it. But just to be able to share that pain and that in the moment suffering with somebody else.
Absolutely.
You want to be strategic about your starting five, because not everybody is equipped to support you. People that love you most may not be the persons that need to be in your starting five. I have people that love me tremendously, will do anything for me, and they mean the best for me, but I would not call them, because I know when I'm talking about vibration, again, if you're in a depressive episode, you need something that's going to raise vibration. So if I'm feeling bummed out or concerned about a particular stressor, I'm not going to call certain friends that I know are going to be worry warts, or that are going to judge me, or that are going to tell me to shake it off, or not honor my feelings. And again, they may be doing it because they're trying to be reinforcing and encouraging, and they're trying to do it for what they feel are the best reasons, but that might not be the kind of love you need in the moment. So it's about being strategic about who's your starting five. I always recommend having a professional in that rotation. And for many reasons, obviously level of expertise, but also availability. That people in our starting five, they have lives too, and they have stressors, and they have things that they're coping with. So it might be you need a starting 10 to where you can always pull out your best five. You can never have too big of a support community, ever. And if you're one that likes to live on the island called life, you got to break free of that, because nobody can survive there alone. Everybody needs somebody for something at some point. I don't care who you are, how high functioning you are, how in command or in control of your life you feel like you are. We all have vulnerable moments where we need somebody, where we just need a friend.
No doubt. No doubt.
Right?
I love that concept of the starting five. And I would just add in that, you said sometimes you're starting five having a professional on there. And one of the benefits of that is that this is a neutral person, right? This isn't a person that you're going to have to manage anything about what you're sharing. You can just be. I don't have to worry about, is this the right time for her or for him? You can just show up. And there's something really freeing about that, because sometimes even with our friends, they might be our starting five, and they're people that bring us light. Sometimes we don't want to feel like a burden, all these different things that we'll say to ourselves to keep us from. And so I think, to be able to have a neutral person where you can just let it all out unfiltered can be so healing. Yeah,
super huge. And thank you for saying that, because as you and I were talking off camera about just me personally having done my work over the years to heal old wounds and overcome adversities of all different types, like this all started for me back in my college days. I was in a moment of crisis the very first time I went to a counselor. But I also remember walking away, like, culturally, no, you don't tell business outside of family. You don't, you're strong. You're a strong person, right? You're supposed to be tough and be able to withstand whatever. So I felt really vulnerable going into the experience, and I just basically just threw up all over her, whatever was happening at the time. And then I walked away, and I kind of felt some type of way, but I also felt really good to have just dumped it. And like, she doesn't know me, like, even if she judges me, whatever, I just, you know, she's not supposed to, but you know.
Right. She's human, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it didn't matter. So to have a neutral and objective person, at least for sure part of your starting five, but really, I think folks should have to go to counseling once a year, at least, as a required, you know, preventative maintenance. You know, in the same way we go and get annual physicals and checkups, like, I feel like there should be some kind of expectation or requirement, like, at least socially, we should make it more commonplace for that to be the reality for folks. Right. Counseling and therapy over the years has literally changed my life. I'm always going to be pro it. I mean, even if I'm not struggling, just to have another objective ear, just to process things with, or to help you move forward with certain things. Like, it's so necessary and underutilized, like on a multitude of levels, underutilized. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of those things. Let's see, how are we doing? Ooh, we're at 53 minutes. So I wanted to be able to share at least a couple tips about how to support others. So maybe your top suggestion for if someone's struggling with depression, what would you say? How can they help a friend?
I think number one, just pay attention. You know, we've mentioned a lot of different ways that this might show up. And so people may not even know themselves that they're in that place. But if you start to hear them saying, like, every time you ask them how you're doing, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, just pay attention to some of these symptoms and begin to recognize it. You know, I think sometimes people can feel overwhelmed, you know, if you don't have a degree in counseling. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But sometimes just saying, like, I just wanted to check in on you. You were just on my heart.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times we'll say, how you doing? And people will say, fine. And we'll just kind of keep it moving.
No, like, how are you really doing?
How are you really doing? Yeah. Right? Like, ask that second time and just hold space. Just listen, right? Listen without judgment. I think a lot of times, you know, we are thinking like, well, if I was in this situation, here's what I would do. And we want to jump into either judging how the person's responding to the stressor or jump into fix-it mode. Neither of the two are helpful, right? Sometimes it's just about holding space for someone.
Yes.
Just being that ear.
Yeah.
And letting people know, you know, even when you ask that second, how are you really doing? You might still get, oh, girl, I'm good. You know, and then they'll reflect it back to you. But just say, okay, you were just on my heart. And I just want to know, if you ever want to open up about anything, remind people that you're there. You know, right now, I know this is Suicide Awareness Prevention Month. Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge just how frequent, like you said, Alami, earlier, you've had those dark nights, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've had those too, where I just didn't feel like I could pull it through. It just felt too hard, right? And so recognizing that that's a common occurrence for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to look a particular way. So I think it's important to let people know that you matter, right? Sometimes it might even just be saying,
I see you.
Message. I see you, right?
Yeah.
Even if you know this is a friend that does not open up, you know, this friend is not going to be the one to pour it out to you, but just send a loving text to say, I just want you to know that I love you, and reflect on maybe one thing that they've done that you really appreciate about them. Yeah. Right? So
you took my answer.
Oh, see,
no, it's perfect. And just to kind of wind things down, just to reiterate what you said about holding space without judgment. That's it. That's the best way you can support a friend. And of course, recommend any of the strategies that we've already previously mentioned. But that's number one on the list, is just to be a listening ear, to be an available ear without judgment or pretense. That's it. I so love you.
I love you too, Alami.
I'm so grateful for this.
I'm really grateful, like I said in the very beginning, that for
this has been amazing.
The experience has just been, like I said, this went much faster than I even expected.
I know, right? I'm telling you, it flies by. So what I'm going to do, like I said in the previous video, is I'm going to put your contact in the description box, your website or whatever. You tell me what you want me to post. Your core love stuff too. And there'll be probably a link to how to schedule a consult with you if you have space available. I don't know. I'll put my link also. And I know I'm going to have you back for sure. I'm definitely going to put your social media contacts in there too, so people can follow your movement. And yeah, the moral of the story being is that if you are someone that struggles with depression, even for a second meaning, you know, extended prolonged time, maybe it was a one-time thing, maybe it's something you've noticed is becoming more chronic, don't sit idle by and suffer in silence. There's just too many outlets for support. There's obviously counseling and psychotherapy. There's coaching. It just depends on kind of where you are and what you need. And if you're not sure, even after listening to these episodes, be in touch with us. Let us help you. I refer. I know Tameka refers out if need be. So there's plenty of folks here to catch you, to support you. So follow us on, if you like this content, make sure you like, subscribe, share with a friend, tag somebody. And then again, I'll post all of our socials. Tameka, I love you so much. I thank you so much. Thanks for joining today. We did it. All right, my love.
All righty.
I'll talk to you soon.
Till next time. Take care.
For sure. Bye.